The wind howled through the desolate streets as Noah's boots hit the cobblestones. The weight of his return pressed down on him, heavier than the years spent in hiding. His heart raced. What had he come back for? The kingdom he once knew was now a faded memory, a distant echo. But deep within, he knew. His fate was tied to this cursed land. The secrets buried here were his to uncover. He glanced around, half expecting to see ghosts in every shadow. The last time he had been here, everything had changed. His family had fallen, his name erased. And yet the hunger for answers burned fiercely. He had been called, summoned by forces he didn't understand. Was it love that had drawn him back? Or was it revenge that had awakened within him, dormant for far too long? He needed to know. But the deeper he delved, the more uncertain he became. Could he truly return? Was redemption even possible for someone like him? Noah stepped deeper into the ruins, his heart thudding in his chest. The shadows seemed to stretch out, watching him, waiting. He had been to this place before, but not like this. His hands were trembling now, though he would never admit it. The weight of what had happened, his family's fall, his name erased, pressed harder with each step. He had always known this moment would come. The return. Yet, he never imagined it would be this difficult. His heart yearned for answers. But what was he supposed to do with the truth? What would it change? His bloodline, wiped from the records, was nothing more than a faded memory in the minds of those who once knew him. Yet, the pull to reclaim it burned fiercely. What if they don't remember me? Noah whispered into the wind, his voice raw with emotion. The city stood silent, its ruins a reflection of his fractured past. Could he find redemption here? Could love still flourish among the ashes? A flicker of movement caught Noah's attention. He froze. His eyes darted across the darkened alleyways, searching for the source. There it was again, a silhouette barely visible in the dim light, a figure shrouded in shadow watching him. Noah instinctively reached for the dagger hidden at his side, but something in his gut told him this was no ordinary foe. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face Noah hadn't seen in years. The face of a woman who had once been a friend, now an enigma. "What are you doing here?" Noah asked, his voice barely a whisper. His heart raced, his pulse quickening at the sight of her. The years had changed them both, but her presence felt like a storm waiting to break. "I'm here to help," she said, her voice low and steady. But Noah knew better than to trust easily. Her words rang hollow in his ears. What help could she possibly offer? Noah's mind raced as the woman's words echoed in his ears. Help? From her. He had not seen her in years, and the last time they met, things had ended badly. She had betrayed him. Or had she? The memory was foggy, clouded by time and the weight of loss. She had her own demons to face. But what was she really doing here? The kingdom, the ruins. They were a constant reminder of the mistakes they had both made. Noah's past was full of broken promises and things left unsaid. "Do you know why I've returned?" he asked, his voice strained. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her eyes softening just a fraction. There was something she wasn't telling him. Something about the fate of the kingdom. What was it? He had to know. He had to decide, trust her or go on alone. "Noah," she said softly, "it's not just your past that's at stake?" He felt the weight of her words settle into his chest. Could they truly face what was coming? Noah took a step back, feeling the weight of the decision he was about to make. Could he trust her? The silence between them stretched thick with the ghosts of their shared history. His mind raced, but his heart felt strangely calm. "Tell me everything," he demanded. The woman hesitated. The weight of her secrets hung in the air like a thick fog. Her lips parted, and for a moment, Noah could see the pain in her eyes. "There's more at play than you realize," she whispered, The storm that had begun to brew seemed to intensify, the wind now howling like a beast. Noah stared at her, his thoughts swirling. Was she the key to the answers he sought? Or was she just another layer of deception? Then why didn't you come sooner? Noah's voice cracked as he asked, the frustration and hurt welling up. She reached out, but the words that followed would change everything, because it wasn't time until now. Noah's heart raced as the footsteps echoed behind him, growing louder with every turn. The air was thick with tension, the city around him closing in like a trap. He could feel the eyes of unseen enemies on him. Every shadow seemed alive. The wind howled through the alleyways, carrying a strange sense of urgency. "We need to get out of here now," he shouted, voice rising in panic. His companion, the woman from before, grabbed his arm, pulling him into a nearby building. She was breathing hard, her face pale, yet determined. "They'll catch us if we don't move faster," she warned. Noah clenched his jaw, the weight of their situation settling in. "Who are we running from?" he demanded, eyes narrowing. "You still don't get it, do you?" she shot back, urgency flashing in her eyes. "They already know who you are. They won't stop until they have you." The words hit Noah like a punch to the gut. He had known danger would come, but not like this. He thought he could control it. Now he wasn't so sure. The chase had begun. They finally slowed down when they reached a quiet rooftop, out of breath, but momentarily safe. The city stretched below them, a sprawling mass of broken buildings and crumbling stone. Noah leaned against a chimney, trying to catch his breath. The weight of the chase still hung in the air. "Do you trust me yet?" the woman asked, her voice soft but firm. Noah glanced over at her, the uncertainty still clear in his eyes. "I'm not sure what to trust," he admitted. The rain continued to fall, tapping against the roof with a soothing rhythm. But Noah's mind was far from calm. "You should," she said, stepping closer. "I've been trying to protect you, but there's something bigger at play here. Something you don't understand yet." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small, glowing stone. "This will help us," she added, holding it up. Noah looked at it, his curiosity piqued, but doubts still clouded his mind. Could he really trust her? Or was this just another part of the trap? A crackling voice echoed in the distance, reaching Noah's ears. His blood ran cold. "We know you're here," the voice said, filled with an eerie calm. Noah turned to the woman, his eyes wide with fear. "Who is that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. She didn't answer right away, her face hardening. "You're not ready for this," she said instead. "But you need to face it." A dark figure appeared in the doorway, stepping into the dim light. It was him, the man who had been hunting them, his presence radiating power and control. His eyes locked onto Noah's, and the air around them grew heavy. "You can't hide from me," the man said, his voice cold and commanding. "You'll come with me one way or another." Fear gripped Noah's chest, but something else, something deeper, rose within him. Defiance. He wasn't going to run anymore. Not from this man, not from anyone. "Why are you doing this?" Noah demanded. The man's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Because you have something I need, and I am not going to stop until it's mine." The woman moved to Noah's side, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "There's no easy way out of this," she said quietly. "You've inherited more than just a name. Your family's legacy, it's tied to this." Tied to him. Noah's eyes flicked to her, confusion clouding his expression. "What are you talking about?" he asked. She sighed, looking away as if she hadn't wanted to say it. "Your bloodline, it's not just royal, it's magical. And you've been running from it for years." Noah recoiled, the truth of her words sinking in slowly. His family had been known for their power, but he had thought it was all a lie, a myth meant to keep the masses in check. Now, it seemed like everything he had been running from had been real all along. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Noah asked, his voice thick with emotion. Because I didn't want to burden you, she replied. But now you have to face it. You're the only one who can stop him. Her words hung heavy in the air. The choice was clear. Accept his fate, or let the world burn. Noah's mind raced as the weight of his destiny pressed down on him. He had no choice now but to act. The man who hunted him, the secrets of his bloodline, everything had led him to this moment. He took a deep breath, pushing aside the fear that threatened to swallow him whole. I'm going after him, he said, his voice steady. The woman looked at him with a mixture of pride and concern. It's dangerous, she warned, but I'll be with you. Noah nodded, his resolve hardening. Then let's go. They turned and began to descend the rooftop. The rain now a quiet murmur in the background. Noah's pulse quickened, but there was no turning back. The chase had begun, and this time he would face it head on. His past, his family's legacy, everything was leading him toward this one final confrontation. There was no more running, only action. The night had settled into an uneasy calm, the air still with only the distant hum of the city. Noah stood beside the woman, their backs against the crumbling walls of a forgotten alley, catching their breath. We're safe here, she whispered, though the tension in her voice betrayed her words. Noah glanced around, uneasy, as shadows shifted in the corners of his vision. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He turned to her, narrowing his eyes. Are you sure? He asked. Her face was calm, but there was something off about her demeanor. A nervous twitch in her fingers, a glance that darted too quickly when she thought he wasn't looking. We have time, she replied, but even her words felt rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself more than him. Noah studied her, the flicker of suspicion growing in his gut. Something wasn't right, but for now the silence of the alley seemed like their only ally. It felt safe, but Noah couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that danger was closing in, just beyond the shadows. I hope you're right, he murmured, the doubt lingering in his mind. They sat on the cold stone steps of a nearby building, trying to catch their breath. The woman looked at Noah, her eyes softening for a moment. You know, I never wanted this for you, she said quietly. Noah met her gaze, his emotions torn between trust and confusion. I didn't ask for any of this, he replied, his voice low. The woman shifted closer, her hand brushing against his. I know, but you don't have a choice now. The weight of your bloodline, the fate of the kingdom, it's all on you. Noah shook his head, the gravity of her words sinking in. You said we could hide. You said we had time. She hesitated before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. We did, until now. Noah leaned back against the cool stone, staring up at the darkened sky. For the first time, he felt the weight of what he was being asked to do. There was no going back. What if I don't want it? He muttered, more to himself than to her. She smiled faintly. Sometimes you don't get to choose, Noah. The choice chooses you. Her words were like a warning, but Noah wasn't sure what he was being warned about. The silence was broken by a voice Noah never expected to hear. You're too late, it said, cold and filled with authority. Noah turned sharply, his pulse quickening. Standing at the entrance of the alley was a man, one he recognized, though he had hoped he never would. The man's gaze was fixed on Noah with cold calculation. You've been running, but this was always your destiny, the man said, his voice smooth and dangerous. The woman beside Noah stiffened, her eyes flickering nervously. What does he mean by that? Noah demanded, his mind racing. The man stepped forward, his face betraying nothing but an unsettling calm. It's time for you to see the truth, the man continued, You've always known it deep inside. You're just too scared to face it. Noah looked at the woman beside him, her hand clenching into a fist at her side. Her silence screamed louder than words. "What is this?" Noah asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "Why haven't you told me?" She hesitated, her eyes shifting between Noah and the man, guilt written across her face. "I didn't know how," she admitted softly, the truth beginning to unravel. "But now you have no choice." The room around them seemed to close in, the reality of the situation settling in with brutal clarity. This man wasn't just a threat. He was connected to Noah's past, a past he had long buried. The world seemed to slow as Noah's mind raced, trying to make sense of the betrayal unraveling before him. He turned to the woman, his voice sharp. "You've known this whole time." The woman flinched, her face pale, her lips trembling. "I had to. I couldn't tell you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Noah's heart clenched as the truth hit him like a physical blow. "So what now? You're working with him," he spat, the anger bubbling to the surface. The woman opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the man stepped forward. "Enough," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. The woman looked up at him as if seeking permission to speak, but she remained silent. Noah's fists clenched. Betrayal. This was the moment everything changed. The woman had lied to him, manipulated him, and now he understood. She had been playing a game all along, and he had been the pawn. Without another word, Noah turned and stormed away, the weight of the betrayal nearly crushing him. "You won't get away with this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. But in his heart he knew the battle was far from over. The truth had been exposed, but the real fight was just beginning. Noah walked through the silent streets, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on him with every step. The woman's words, the man's cold stare, everything felt like a lie now. He couldn't look at her again. His mind reeled, trying to process the truth. He had trusted her. He had thought they were on the same side, but now he understood. He had been a fool. The woman had led him to this point, and now everything he thought he knew had been shattered. "What am I supposed to do now?" he muttered to himself, his voice low, almost lost in the emptiness of the night. The city around him seemed to echo his confusion. His heart was torn between revenge and redemption, and he wasn't sure which path to take. But one thing was certain: he would never be the same. "I'll find the answers," Noah said quietly, his voice full of determination. The betrayal was a scar he would carry, but it wouldn't define him. He would fight back, no matter the cost. The silence after the storm was deafening. Noah stood alone in the darkened room, the weight of everything crashing down on him. His thoughts spiraled as the realization of the betrayal settled deep within him. Every step, every choice that led him here, it was all a lie. The city outside seemed distant, muffled by the walls closing in around him. His fingers brushed the edges of a broken mirror, the shards reflecting the fractured image of the life he once believed in. He had trusted them, all of them, and yet it had all been part of a plan he couldn't understand. The woman's face flashed in his mind. The way she had looked at him, the guilt hidden behind those eyes, a deep ache lodged in his chest. He had been played. But why? He whispered to himself, the question hanging in the empty room. Something shifted, a faint whisper of truth, like a whisper on the wind. The answers were closer than he realized. The world had never been what he thought it was. Noah closed his eyes, the sound of rain tapping against the windows, blending with the memories that flooded his mind. The past, once a distant blur, was now sharp and undeniable. He remembered the day he first met her, how her smile had seemed genuine, how she had promised to help him. "You can't run forever," she had said then, her voice soft but filled with an edge of warning. But he hadn't understood then, hadn't seen the signs. She had always been the one pulling the strings. The truth about his bloodline, about the hidden powers, had never been just about him. It was about controlling him. The woman had known all along. The sound of her voice now seemed distant, a cruel reminder of everything he had lost. "How long were you planning this?" he whispered, as a bitter taste filled his mouth. The truth was simple now, like the sound of a door creaking open, letting in the harsh light. She had never been on his side. She had always been in a part of the darkness. The door creaked open, and there, standing in the shadows, was the one who had been pulling the strings. Noah's heart skipped a beat as their eyes met. "You knew," he said, his voice tight with disbelief. The man stepped forward, his calm demeanor contrasting with the storm of emotions raging inside Noah. "I did," the man replied simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Everything you've done, every decision you've made, it's all part of something much bigger than you realize." Noah took a step back, the weight of the truth sinking in. "You've been manipulating me from the start," he spat. The man's smile was cold, almost affectionate. "Manipulation implies control," he said. "You've always had the choice, but you've never seen it. That's the beauty of it." The words hit Noah like a slap. The man's calmness, his certainty, only made Noah's anger burn hotter. "What do you want from me?" Noah demanded, his fists clenched. The man's gaze softened, but there was no warmth in it. "What I want doesn't matter. You're the one who's going to change everything. You always were. You were never meant to succeed," the man continued, his voice steady, almost soothing. "Your family's legacy was never about power. It was about control. Your bloodline is the key to unlocking something far greater than you could imagine." Noah's stomach turned as the man's words sank in. "You're lying," Noah muttered, but the doubt in his voice betrayed him. "Am I?" the man asked, his voice a mocking lull. "Think about it, Noah. Everything you've been told, everything you've believed, it's all been a carefully constructed lie. And now, it's time for the truth to come to light." The man stepped closer, his gaze piercing through Noah. "Your family wanted to change the world, but they were too weak. You, however, you're different. You're the one who will finally bring it all to fruition." Noah shook his head, the weight of the man's words suffocating him. "I don't believe you," Noah said, though the doubt gnawed at him. "That's because you're not ready to," the man replied with a calm certainty. "But you will be, in time." The finality of his words left Noah with a sinking feeling. The world he knew was shattered beyond repair. Noah stood in the quiet aftermath, his mind reeling from everything he had just learned. The truth was like a weight pressing down on his chest, suffocating him. "So this was the truth all along," he whispered, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. The world he had built in his mind was nothing but a facade. Everything had been manipulated. Everything had been a lie. But even in the pain of the revelation, there was something else rising within him. Something that felt like a spark of clarity. The darkness had consumed him, but now, in the light of truth, he could finally see a path forward. "I won't be controlled," he said softly, his voice stronger now. "I'll make my own way." The transformation was quiet, but powerful. Noah turned and walked away from the man, no longer shackled by the past. The truth had broken him, but it also freed him. The fight was far from over, but now, for the first time, he understood exactly what he had to do. The air was thick with tension, the faint sound of footsteps echoing in the silence. Noah's heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He could feel it in his bones. The collision was imminent. The shadows seemed to grow longer as he stepped forward, each movement deliberate, but filled with anticipation. His breath quickened, the only sound that mattered now. The faint flicker of a torch in the distance illuminated the darkened courtyard, casting shadows that danced like memories on the walls. He wasn't alone. There was a figure standing just out of sight, waiting. The silence stretched, unbearable and heavy. Noah's eyes narrowed, his body tensing. "It ends now," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible above the pounding of his heart. Every step felt like it was pushing him towards something inevitable. The calm before the storm had passed. The battle was about to begin. The figure stepped forward, their face hidden in shadow, only their eyes visible. "You think you can stop this?" The voice hissed, cold and mocking. Noah didn't flinch, but the words struck deep. "I have to try," he replied, his voice steady. The figure chuckled softly, a sound that seemed to ripple through the silence. "You've always been stubborn. That's why you'll fail." Noah's fists clenched, his knuckles white. "Maybe, but I'm not the one running from the truth." The figure stepped closer, their presence oppressive, almost suffocating. The tension was palpable, crackling in the air like a thunderstorm. "You have no idea what you're up against," they said, their voice low, dangerous. Noah's eyes locked onto theirs, the silence now louder than any words. "I don't need to know," Noah spat. "I just need to fight." The figure moved, and with it, the fight began. The rhythm of their clash echoed in the courtyard, each movement quick, precise, and filled with raw emotion. The clash of wills, of beliefs, both sure they were right, both unwilling to back down. The battle raged. The clash grew fiercer, their movements fluid and swift, but something was changing. A cry echoed in the distance, followed by a sickening thud. Noah's heart skipped as he turned to see the woman fall, a dark figure emerging from behind her. Time seemed to slow. The woman's blood pooled on the ground, the red a stark contrast against the cold stone. Noah froze, disbelief washing over him. "No!" he shouted, rushing to her side, his breath ragged. "You shouldn't have," the woman whispered, her voice weak. She reached up, her hand trembling as it brushed his cheek. "You have to finish this. You have to stop him." The words barely left her lips before her hand fell, lifeless. The pain, the loss, was suffocating. Noah's world tilted, the rage building within him like a storm. He clenched his fists, the blood on his hands a reminder of the cost. The fight was no longer just about survival. It was personal. "I will make him pay," Noah whispered, his voice filled with raw emotion. The battle wasn't over. It had just taken on a new meaning. The figure stood before him, calm and unyielding. "This was always going to happen," they said, their voice now laced with an eerie calm. "Your loss, your pain, it's all part of the plan." Noah's eyes burned with fury as he wiped the blood from his hands. "You think this is your victory?" Noah's voice was low, deadly. "This ends now." The figure smirked, their eyes glinting with a strange mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. "You can't stop what's been set in motion," they said. "You're just another pawn in the game, just like your family before you." The words stung, but Noah didn't flinch. He was no longer the same man who had walked into this battle. He understood now. "I'm not a pawn," he replied, each word punctuated by the force of his resolve. With a swift movement, the final clash began, the sounds of their struggle echoing through the courtyard. Fire met water, light clashed with shadow, and in that moment, everything changed. The truth had been laid bare, and now it was up to Noah to decide what kind of man he would be. The fight had ended. The silence that followed was deafening. Noah stood, bloodied and broken, the weight of the battle settling on his shoulders. The figure lay motionless on the ground, their last breath stolen by the very power they had sought to control. But in the stillness something else lingered, the price of victory. Noah's breath was ragged, his heart heavy. The woman's death, the loss, the sacrifice, it all weighed on him. He had won, but at what cost? The courtyard was quiet now, the rain falling softly against the stones. Noah looked at the fallen figure, his face unreadable. "This was the truth," he whispered, his voice soft but filled with finality. The world had changed, and so had he. The weight of destiny no longer pressed upon him. It had been replaced by something deeper, the understanding of what he was willing to sacrifice. The journey had ended, but Noah had been reborn. The echoes of the past faded into the rain, leaving only the quiet resolve of what was to come. The air was still, heavy with the weight of the past. The chaos of the battle had faded into an eerie silence, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The faint sound of wind rustling through the trees was the only thing breaking the quiet. The courtyard was in ruins, the remnants of their fight scattered across the ground like forgotten memories. Noah stood motionless, his chest heaving with the effort of what had just happened. His hands were still stained, and the taste of ash lingered in his mouth. The night had stretched on forever, but now, as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, everything felt different. The world was waking up again. But Noah's world had already changed. He had won, but at what cost? The pain of loss, the weight of truth, and the price of redemption all settled on him in one overwhelming moment. What had he lost in the fight for what he believed was right? Noah's mind wandered back to the faces of those he had lost. The woman, the mentor, the friends who had helped him along the way. Their voices echoed in his thoughts, and he couldn't shake the weight of their absence. He wondered if it was all worth it. "I couldn't save them," he whispered to the empty courtyard, his voice breaking the stillness. The wind seemed to answer with a soft sigh, the leaves rustling as if to comfort him. He closed his eyes, remembering the warmth of the woman's hand, the quiet wisdom in his mentor's eyes. Their sacrifices had meant something, but it didn't make the pain of their loss any less. He knew life would continue, but he didn't know how. It was as though everything he had fought for had already slipped through his fingers. The path ahead was uncertain, but he had come too far to turn back. "They're gone," he murmured, "but they're still with me." He opened his eyes, a quiet resolve forming. Life would go on, but it would never be the same. The sound of footsteps broke through the silence. Noah turned slowly, his heart in his throat. She was there, standing in the doorway, her presence a haunting reminder of everything he had lost. "I thought you were," he began, but his voice faltered. She was alive. Her body was bruised, but she was standing. She smiled faintly, her eyes tired but filled with the same determination that had always been there. "I wasn't going to leave you," she said softly, her voice raw but strong. Noah stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "How?" was all he could manage. She took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "There's always a way. I couldn't let you carry this alone." Noah reached out, his hand trembling as he touched her arm, the warmth of her presence grounding him. It wasn't over, not yet. But this moment, this fragile piece, was enough. "I don't know what's next," he said quietly, "but we'll face it together." As the woman walked beside him, Noah felt the weight of everything he had learned, everything he had lost. But in this moment he remembered the lessons his mentor had taught him, to find strength even in the darkest moments, to hold on to the truth even when it seemed impossible. "They're gone," Noah said quietly, his voice filled with grief. "But what they left, it's still here." He looked at the woman beside him, his eyes filled with gratitude. She nodded slowly, understanding without words. The mentor's legacy, his teachings, were alive in them both. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was theirs to shape. "We carry their strength now," she said softly, her voice steady. "We make sure their sacrifices meant something." Noah looked out toward the horizon where the sky was beginning to clear. There was still much to be done, but the weight of the world didn't feel as heavy anymore. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was no longer filled with darkness. The dawn had come, and with it, a new beginning. Noah stood at the edge of the courtyard, looking out at the world beyond. The battles, the sacrifices, they were all behind him now. He had come to understand the cost of truth, of love, of redemption. And now he had a choice. He could turn away, leave it all behind, or he could step forward into whatever came next. The memories of those lost still burned brightly in his heart, but their lessons, their strength, would carry him forward. "So this is where it ends," he whispered, the words heavy but filled with acceptance. The past was gone, but he was still here. He wasn't broken. He had changed. "And this is where it begins," he added, a quiet determination in his voice. He turned to the woman beside him, a soft smile crossing his face. "Together," he said simply, and with that, they walked toward the future, their path uncertain but full of possibility. The world felt still, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. The sun had risen, but it seemed to hold no warmth, casting a pale light over the remnants of what had come before. The battle was over, but the air still hummed with the weight of what had been lost. Noah stood at the edge of the ruined courtyard, his eyes scanning the horizon, but seeing nothing. His thoughts were elsewhere, caught in the quiet aftermath of everything he had endured. His body was exhausted, his heart heavy with the ghosts of those who had fallen. What remained was not just the broken pieces of a world, but the quiet knowledge that it could never be whole again. "Is this what victory feels like?" he whispered, the question hanging in the air unanswered. The wind blew softly, a cool reminder that the world would keep turning, even as he remained still. Everything had changed, but somehow, everything had stayed the same. Noah's feet moved slowly, almost as if he were walking through a dream. Each step was deliberate, the weight of his decision carrying him forward. He had left the battlefield behind, but his journey was far from over. The memories of those lost, the lessons learned, all moved with him, settling into his chest like stones. With every movement, he was letting go of the anger, the pain, and even the hope. The world would continue without him, just as it always had. "It's time to move on," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. As he walked away from the ruins, the past seemed to slip further behind, blending into the distance. The path ahead was unclear, but it was his now. There was no more running, no more escaping what was. He had faced the storm, and now he would find peace in the silence. A soft voice broke through the silence, a memory echoing in the stillness. "Remember who you are," the voice said, reverberating in his mind. The same words his mentor had spoken all those years ago. Noah's heart clenched at the memory. "I remember," he whispered back, though no one was there. The world had shifted, but the lessons remained, tucked away in the corners of his heart. There was no need for grand gestures, no need for words now. His mentor had given him everything he needed: strength, wisdom, and a quiet understanding that life was fragile and fleeting. The past had shaped him, but it no longer controlled him. "You've done what was asked of you," the memory whispered. "Now live." Noah nodded to himself, a single tear slipping down his cheek, the weight of his mentor's words settling into his soul. The truth was now part of him, and with it, he could move forward. The world moved on. Time passed, and new faces appeared, walking the same roads, unaware of the stories that had shaped the land. The sun rose each day, and the winds changed with the seasons. Noah watched it all from the edge of a distant hill, the rhythm of life continuing, as it always had. The earth, alive and breathing, carried on indifferent to the lives it had taken, and the lives it had given. We carry their memories, Noah thought, as he watched the new day unfold. The past was a memory now, a part of him, but not all of him. There was still a future, still a path to follow. He didn't know where it would lead, but he would walk it with a quiet strength, carrying everything he had learned. The world was still turning, and he would turn with it, step by step, into whatever came next. The end had come, but the journey continued. Noah's footsteps were the only sound in the quiet world around him. The air was still, carrying the scent of earth and new beginnings. He had walked this path before, but now it was different. The world felt heavier, wiser, as if it too had learned the cost of truth. Truth must never be owned, Noah whispered, the words quiet but resolute. The path ahead was unclear, but for the first time it didn't matter. He had faced the storm, and now he walked into the calm. With each step he let go of what was, embracing what could be. This was his journey, and in the end, it would be enough.